Where we need to go, as opposed to believing that, for some reason, lawyers will stop voting for one of their own. It will not happen.
All right, Delano, do you share the same sentiments?
I think we need to really move forward because when we compare a democracy like Germany, which is Europe's strongest economy, and the way that their politics is playing out, and we look at Kenya, which has a very, very small GDP, and when we look at our debt to GDP ratio, when we look at other dynamic factors, I think the politics problem, if I mention something that my colleague over here was talking about, is really about people right now. The mood or some of the agitation appears to be like people are looking for the ability to resource manage.
Yes.
And we need to get away from this management discussion. And there's a leadership versus management thing that is going on over here.
Yeah.
And I think really Kenya needs to move to leadership, not to management. I think even from a resource perspective, we should not be looking at, say, cabinet secretaries being appointed to be resource managers because they have the academic qualifications to do that. Because you will find that that person perhaps was a very good manager, but a horrible leader. And you'll find that in 5 years, Kenyans have nothing to show for actually having that particular cabinet secretary in place. We also need to look at another aspect. The other aspect is Kenya as a whole. We do not have currently a swiftly growing economy.
Yeah.
We have an economy that is at best compressed. We have lack of good utilization of our natural resources. We have that industrialization bit that has not been really tweaked out. So we have so many other issues apart from the politics and apart from feeling that I have my guy in place. If we have my guy in place, look, what is my guy's plan to actually make sure that that lady in Potsio who has not been able to sell her fish is able to find an open market across somewhere else in Uganda, which is not too far away, which is profitable to her and her family.
Yes.
We have to move to the leadership matters. And we have to begin to talk about things that are not just factored or centralized around politics and issues which are factored and centralized around government institutions, parliament, the judiciary, and governance from the center. Devolution came in so that actually every single region, 47 regions, would have their own autonomy. Devolution hasn't worked beautifully simply because of one factor. The governors and the county governments simply do not have the resources. And they don't have the resources because if you look at Kenya, most of our budget is spent on just recurrent expenditure. We have very little for development.
Yeah.
And even then when we have money for development, we look at it on a 12-year term. In Asia, these guys plan 100 years ahead. So where is it? And we have Vision 2030, but Vision 2030 at best doesn't even have the resources to have the Vision 2030. We should have been talking about a Vision 2030 that has factored, it's got 5 trillion that has been locked into it to drive it out. So in terms of just the subjective matters of talking the politics, we actually have to say, okay guys, it's been a nice discussion. We've called the clan